Hello everybody, and thank you for joining me this evening. Tonight I'm here to talk to you about paid fantasy football websites, which some people consider gambling and illegal, but I don't consider them gambling and illegal. And I'm going to try to convince you that it shouldn't be considered gambling. We all love the game of football. Who doesn't like to take the old pigskin out and throw it around? But we also love to see how players are going to do in football. When that comes in with is the fantasy football aspect. We all love to make football teams and pick our favorite players in a fantasy draft and see who's going to do better than the other for bragging rights, basically. Now, should that be considered illegal? I say no. You're not technically betting anything solely on one player or solely on the outcome of one game. To me, it's more of a game of skill. The two companies I'm going to talk about for a few minutes are DraftKings and FanDuel, which have somewhere around the neighborhood of over 300 million investors, according to Chris Isidorn of CNN Money. I did a little research, and I also found that reading some periodicals, a guy named Chris Corman, I'm drawing a blank on the actual periodical that I read recently, which is unfortunate, but he was quoted as saying they were spent $31 million on over 9,000 ads just in the first week of NFL football season. 31 million and 9,000 ads in just the first week. That tells you how the growing popularity of this paid fantasy football. It's actually illegal in a couple of states, 5 states to be exact, and those states include Arizona, Iowa, Louisiana, Washington, and surprisingly enough, recently, Nevada, of all states, has decided that paid fantasy football sites should be considered gambling and should be considered illegal, as they don't have the proper permits, which is very interesting coming from a state that is solely based on making money and gambling. But I guess if you don't have the proper permits, then that might be a problem. But then again, these sites should not be considered illegal or gambling. As I said, $31 million for 9,000 ads. And I have a visual here. Number of commercials in just 12 hours of football from the first week. Just 12 hours of football. There was 16 DraftKings commercials and 14, the blue here, 14 FanDuel commercials. And this is just in 12 hours. 16 DraftKings commercials and 14 FanDuel commercials. Just in 12 hours of football. So it's definitely become a craze, and it's definitely something they're putting a lot of money into. You even have top companies such as Yahoo and Disney's ESPN Sports Center unit who put a lot of money into these companies. It's a $1.5 billion industry to be exact. It's very interesting, as I say, that they consider it gambling because, as I say, it's a matter of skill and knowledge. And it's basically, you're just saying, okay, I'm going to pick this guy, I'm going to pick this guy and this guy, and we'll see how he does. You're not betting solely on the over-under is 55 points for this game, or is Tom Brady going to lead the Patriots to win by 7 points so I can cover the spread. That's definitely betting. That's definitely gambling, I should say. That's something that paid fantasy football is not. Paid fantasy football, basically, you have a team, you pick your quarterback, running backs, wide receiver, tight end, defense, and then they accumulate the points. When they do something well or they do something bad, then they lose points, and in the end you have a point total, and if you're in the top spots, then you win some money. Most of the bets start at 25 cents all the way up to $25. But as I said, these companies take in this money, but then they give it right back out to you, the consumer. Now, is that considered gambling? I just really don't think that's considered gambling. It's about having fun and enjoying yourself, not solely about breaking the bank and making money. For some people it might be, but for me, I enjoy DraftKings. I use DraftKings every week, and for me it's just fun with the friends. My buddy has a DraftKings web account, and we see how well each other does every week. It's definitely not something I would consider gambling. As 25-cent bets, that's chump change considering what some people put into these types of gambling situations. On the over-unders and the point spreads, as Nevada is involved heavily in, which, as I say, surprisingly doesn't feel that DraftKings and FanDuel should be allowed in their state. And I've also read recently in the Tampa Bay Times that the state of Florida has actually started to look into the paid fantasy football websites and is trying to determine if Florida needs certain permits to be able to use these products. So we might very well see the end of DraftKings and FanDuel in this area, which is very unfortunate. In closing, I believe I have somewhat convinced you that to a small extent that paid fantasy football sites should not be considered gambling. Yet, but it's a way to enjoy football even more, watch it even more, which the NFL would love, I would think, to have more people watch. Keeps you more interested, lets you follow more teams and more players, and spend more money on their products and merchandise if you have a favorite. So overall, I believe it's not gambling, and I hope that to some small extent I've convinced you that it's not. And I thank you for joining me this evening, and we will be taking questions next. Thank you very much.